Hi Aries, Rosemary from Rosemary Astrology, and welcome to your October 2024 astrology. Let's start with the eclipse taking place across from you in your seventh house. I did do a whole video just about this eclipse. It did come out before the monthly astrology, so I'll link that in the description. But what I'm saying for you, Aries, do know is what is applicable to the collective because, of course, your chart reflects the natural house chart with each sign in its associated house. That's what I wanted to say. So new moon eclipse or solar eclipse, same thing, just means the sun and the moon are together. And we also have Mercury along for the ride. This eclipse is on the 2nd of October at 2:45 p.m. I'm always in Eastern time at 10 degrees of Libra. Remember, an eclipse is always a blind spot. It's a shadow. Something is unseen. So something or someone is being eclipsed out. Something is happening behind the scenes, something we don't know about. We have missing information. A new moon eclipse marks a beginning happening in shadow. So something is starting. It could come on the heels of the last eclipse that was in September, where this lunar eclipse was about something ending. Often I find they're two sides of the same coin. When something ends, something begins, or when we begin something, it sometimes has to mark an ending somewhere else. It could affect the person concerned by the house. So this is committed partners. We think of life partner, marriage partner, business partner. It's an ex. It's rivals and the competition. I don't want to do scary astrology and tell you this means, your partner is going to be eclipsed out, but it could be the start of something where an aspect of that relationship is going to be eclipsed out, or ultimately, and again, that won't apply to everyone, but that person will eventually be eclipsed out. But often, it is weeks or months or sometimes even years down the road. Sometimes we look to when another planet hits the same degree, regardless of sign. I did look a little bit ahead, and the first to do that will be Jupiter, but by then in Cancer in July of 2025. The most important thing to remember on an eclipse and easily 1 week before and after is not to make choices, not to make decisions, not to start something because you don't have all the information. Sometimes there's a front story. We think, okay, that's what's going on, but that's not the whole story. Usually whatever is the real story is what's taking place in shadows or in the background. Mercury is going to be there as well. Mercury, all our communications, our thought process. So maybe you are thinking about something to do with a partnership, again, an ex, the competition, reflecting on you within the context of a relationship. There's a tendency to want to communicate a lot about that with Mercury there, discuss a lot of things, but I wrote in my notes, reflect, think, but don't act. Mercury, remember, is also agreements and negotiating. So if you're discussing something and trying to agree on something, again, do avoid the eclipse because you're going to be agreeing to something, but you're going to have information missing again. The moon is going to move off quite quickly. The moon spends only about a day and a half in each sign. Mercury is going to remain there, though, along with the sun. So you're going to continue thinking about this story. You're going to continue focusing on your relationships. By the 13th, Mercury moves into your 8th house. If the 7th house is other, the 8th is others, money and wealth. So the finances you share with a partner, shared property, shared wealth. It can be something like a loan, a mortgage, a grant of some sort, financing. It's debt by the same token. It's also inheritances if that applies to you. Venus relates to money and has been there since the start of the month. So quite favorable energy. Venus is the lesser beneficent astrology. Maybe you're having ideas or just benefits in terms of reducing debt, of helping a partner increase their wealth. People want to enter into relationship with us wherever Venus is. Venus is very charming and diplomatic. So if you have to ask for financing of some sort, if you're applying for a scholarship, if you're meeting with a committee to get a grant, for example, Venus is going to be really, really good energy to do so. Even discussing with a partner how, the division of wealth is, or what you're going to be doing with your shared finances or your shared property. And Mercury makes you excellent at communicating, has you thinking about a lot of options. Mercury can sift through a lot of information quite quickly. By the 17th, Venus moves into your ninth house. This is higher education, long distance travel, whatever broadens our life outlook, whatever is different from us in terms of, philosophy and ways of seeing the world. So it includes things like publishing, mass media communications, dogma, doctrine. It's even propaganda as well. It's organized religion. Venus can mark a romance with someone who is very different. It can be a foreigner, can just be someone from a very, very different background that is going to, again, broaden your view of the world. Someone with a very different life outlook that by the same token is going to modify your life outlook as well. On that same day, on the 17th, the moon, not the same at all. The moon is going to be full in your sign, Aries. That is on the 17th at 24 degrees of Aries. Few things I want to tell you. Of course, sun moon opposition. Again, we're back to this first house, self, individuality, uniqueness, seventh house, partnerships, excess, competition. Full moons in our sign full moons always make us more emotional, but when they're in our sign, we can become particularly emotionally needy. We want a lot of nurturing. We want a lot of caring, dare I say, a lot of cuddling. So you might be a little more demanding with a partner in terms of needing that sense of security, there's an idea of expressing all our emotional palette when the moon is full in our sign. So, there might be that back and forth there. The full moon also highlights something. So maybe it has something to do with you. Maybe it has something to do with you in terms of the relationship. Maybe it is bringing something to conclusion, with this eclipse, with all the energy that has been focused on partnerships. Maybe there's something you're thinking, well, I'm not going to do that anymore, or I'm not going to accept something being like that in the relationship anymore. There's always that idea of back and forth of what does the partnership bring to me? How does it help me grow and evolve? And what am I bringing to the partnership? So a little more intense for you, Aries. Again, give yourself a few days on either side. Don't get caught up in anything. The tendency for everybody to be more emotional. Remember, it's the full moon for all of us. So there's a tendency for all of us to be more emotional. Just let it settle down a few days after and then approach things more calmly. The other thing that is going on is, if that isn't enough, this full moon is going to square Mars about 2 degrees away. Mars, your ruler, sitting in your fourth house of home and family. So it's a full moon. It's a full moon in your sign, and your ruler Mars is getting involved in a square, which is a very chafing aspect. Mars is, this as Mars is your ruler, very dynamic, can be very combative. So you will be even more easily triggered. Mars is really like, okay, let's do something, and you're not going to step on my toes, and this is the way it's going to be, and this is what I want to do. So you can be feeling even more triggered on this full moon. Let's talk about the sun. On the 22nd, the sun is going to shift into Scorpio. Just continuing this conversation of shared wealth and income, financing of some sort, again, debt. The sun is definite focus there, so can be continuing this conversation of, what Venus brought in, what Mercury has had you thinking about and had you discussing, and just focusing on all that, shining its bright light. And it is like the yearly check-in. So exactly where are we with, in terms of financing, in terms of property we share with others, in terms of our debt, for example. Coming back to Mars, Mars has been in your fourth house in Cancer since September, will be there all of October. This is home and family, so family of origin, family of choice, the physical place you live, so the actual building. It is where we belong, so homeland, province, state. Mars is going to be stationing retrograde on the 6th of December. I am getting very ahead of myself, but is already in pre-retrograde shadow on the 5th at 17 degrees of Cancer. So Mars is already beginning to slow down. Of course, the Mars retrograde will affect you more, Aries, because Mars is your ruler. it is still, or Mars is still in good position. I wrote, whatever, if you have to push ahead, do it now while Mars is on his last legs, because we're going to feel the slowdown more in November, especially after this, or during the second half of November as we head into the start of December. And even more so during the retrograde, so in December and January. Mars can get very, very frustrated. If we don't know the energy, it can translate with a real feeling of frustration, because Mars, again, is trying to push ahead, wants us to do stuff, is a lot of dynamic energy, but, is backing up, is retracing his steps, is going over the same part of the chart. And it seems as if things are repeating and they're going backwards and they're not going forwards. So if you have to push ahead with something, fourth house, settling a family dynamic, it could be something to do with your house, like renovating something, decorating something very. The beauty aspect of decorating will belong to Venus, but the actual getting out the hammer and the nails, or the painting or whatever, is very, very Mars. Mars likes to do stuff. I always joke that Mars in the fourth house likes to bang on things with a hammer, but you get the idea. Maybe this concerns a move, so this is still the time where you have the energy to get that done. And I'm just going to backtrack 1 second here, Aries, and I do apologize, but I almost forgot. When Venus is still in your 8th house of financing or wealth you share with someone else, just before she leaves on the 17th, from the 12th to the 17th, she's going to oppose unpredictable Uranus in your 2nd house of your wealth and income. So Uranus, again, unpredictable events, breaking free, breaking away, the need for freedom. So could this have something to do with your wealth, your money, how much goes into what is shared with a partner, how much goes to debt? There's going to be a back and forth here, and there's going to be a need for more freedom. Maybe this is something like, this won't apply to all of you, but you have a joint bank account, but now you also want your own bank account, for example, if you didn't already have that. Or maybe the idea of, I don't want to carry that debt anymore. I'm going to do something very different in order to really get rid of that and not have that going on anymore. So a lot of freedom breaking away. I always say Uranus functions in fits and starts, and this opposition is just going to be one more, marker in this story of what Uranus has been doing in your 2nd house. So Aries, that is everything I wanted to tell you for October. Thank you so much for joining me. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. Take care. Have a wonderful, wonderful month, Aries, and I'll see you in the next one.